don't go believing anything I say. No, don't go believing me. No, don't listen to me, don't take any notice. Don't listen to anything that I say. Thank you.
This press conference is dedicated to the launch of the UK AMR Vision and National Action Plan, and we're very pleased to be joined here today by Matt Hancock, the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care of the United Kingdom. Minister, please, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, George. The purpose of the World Economic Forum is to bring together the world's leaders and big business to solve some of the most difficult problems. And one of those problems is antimicrobial resistance, where the world has come together over the last 5 years, but so much progress still needs to be made to stop an otherwise terrible future. And as Health Secretary, responsible for one of the most advanced healthcare systems in the world.
And the problem is not with the health systems, it's the numbers of sufferers.
I couldn't look my children in the eyes unless I knew I was doing all in my power to solve this great threat. When we have the time to act, and the urgency is now. Each and every one of us benefits from antibiotics, but we all too easily take them for granted. And I shudder at the thought of a world in which their power is diminished. Antimicrobial resistance is a big danger to humanity and as big a danger as climate change or warfare, and that's why we need an urgent global response.
Business worldwide, is anyone doing better than we are?
The UK has taken a lead by setting out a 20-year AMR vision, explaining the steps that we need to take, both nationally and internationally, to rise to this challenge. And it fits into a pattern of work across the world that we need to keep driving forward. The plan incorporates 3 things we need to do: prevention, innovation, and collaboration.
Prevention, innovation, and collaboration. Well, they've fulfilled 2 of those already because they were already signing up to it in 2019. It's called Horizon Europe, and it's all about innovation and research. This is where all the DNA data is being processed and funded through.
And I'll speak a little about each. First, preventing infections is vital. Today we've set a target for the UK to cut resistant infections by 10% within 5 years and to cut antibiotic use by a further 15% within 5 years by only using antibiotics when absolutely necessary. And everybody can play a part in only using antibiotics when they are really needed.
Now, as far as I'm aware, you can only get antibiotics on prescription. So, where's all the excess and unnecessary antibiotics being used?
We're also going to work with the livestock industry and build on the amazing 40% reduction in antibiotic usage in just 5 years. In fact, among chicken farming,
poultry production is where you get eggs. Eggs is where you get the old way of producing vaccines.
There's a 71% reduction in antibiotic use, whilst productivity has increased by 11%, showing that this can be done.
So antibiotic use goes down, production goes up by 11%, but since around 2018 to present, there's more of those production facilities shut down and closed down and burnt down.
We're going to do all of this, both in humans and animals, through immunisation, better infection control, working with doctors, vets, farmers and patients to prevent unnecessary prescription of antibiotics.
Inoculation and vaccination to reduce antibiotic use.
Second, innovation. There hasn't been a single new class of antibiotics since the 1980s.
It's the final countdown.
No new innovation in the most basic bedrock of every health service in the world.
Nothing's new under the sun.
which is shocking and deeply troubling.
Nothing's new under the sun.
Any health minister who doesn't lie awake at night worrying about the lack of a pack of antibiotics must have a prescription of some seriously strong sleeping pills.
Now, unless you've been microdosing sedatives for the past 8 months,
I'd say about, 5 years maybe? I've noticed it for the last 3.
I'm sure you've realized by now that the CV-19 pandemic was manufactured to kickstart this agenda.
Now, we know the reasons why. Compared to expensive new cancer and heart drugs, for instance, putting time and money into developing new antibiotics is commercially unattractive for pharmaceutical companies.
And this is why you're being commercialised, and we'll get to that with the other little bit that comes up.
And under the traditional model of revenue linked to volume, there's an added disincentive for pharmaceutical companies with a product that must be conserved. So we need a new model, one that works with and incentivizes the pharmaceutical industry. And this is where the NHS can come in. Because of its unique position, it can take a global lead in pioneering a new payment system that reflects the true value of antibiotics to society. At the heart of this approach is changing the way we think about antibiotics from a medical product to a medical service, from a medical product to a medical service, from a medical product to a medical service, a service we all rely on as patients, as doctors, and as pharma companies.
Now, didn't he say they're trying to reduce the use of antibiotics?
So within 6 months, the NHS is going to start work on paying for the service and therefore the security of having access to critical antibiotics when we need them, rather than hoping there's a product we can buy in the future.
So how do you get a future product on the market now? Go on, ask yourself that question. A future product being produced as soon as you need it. How do you think they're going to actually enable that?
It's a bit like being a Spotify subscriber rather than a vinyl record shopper. And we'll pay upfront, so pharmaceutical companies know that it's worthwhile for them to invest in the estimated $1 billion it costs to develop a new drug, and we'll work with the industry to develop the next generation of antibiotics that are available and accessible to all. But the only way this system can incentivize innovation globally is, of course, if it's expanded globally. And this brings me to my third and final point on collaboration. I'm proud of the work that the UK has done to ensure that antimicrobial resistance is on the global agenda. We're playing our part. We're playing our part. We're playing our part.
We're playing our part. Act like you've got it. Bit of a script.
Both at home and on the world stage. We recognise that none of us can stand alone against AMR. It won't be solved by one nation, no single action or intervention. It's a fight that needs continued collaboration across borders now and in the future. So I'm meeting health ministers from across the world here and leaders of the pharmaceutical industry to agree further action. And next week, the UN Interagency Coordinating Group are publishing their draft recommendations on the next steps needed to tackle AMR. And I believe that that will take us one step closer. This is a challenge that we need to rise to and step forward and push ourselves further. And together, I'm convinced that with a proper plan, we can achieve that goal.
Well, I hope you're not relying on anything the government's got written down, because they're about 50 years out of date, according to their plans.
Thank you very much, Minister. And we're certainly very happy here at the World Economic Forum that you've chosen this platform to make this important announcement, since we pride ourselves with CEPI and Gavi and Global Fund.
Now, if you notice, those two funds that were mentioned, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Boris has stopped mentioning them, but he's on about COVAX. That still has links to the same people.
And other initiatives in the fight against infectious diseases. So thank you for your leadership on the issue. Thank you for your leadership on the issue. Thank you for your leadership on the issue.
What's his reaction on the word leadership? You know, like he mentioned a little while ago in the lessons learned inquiry. Well, he tried.
couple of minutes for Q&A.
Can you give some specifics about how much this is going to cost? Obviously, a lot of concern, a lot of focus in the UK on costs, and the NHS does have more money pledged, but there are lots of new promises from that plan that was unveiled just recently. So I think, that people will be aware that there is only a finite amount of money on this, and this is a very expensive task. And just more broadly, I mean, is this analogous to climate change in that this is a major issue that demands kind of international cooperation? And is it not concerning that with the UK leaving the EU, its position as a participant in that international dialogue might be damaged by that?
Climate change.
Tackling an issue like antimicrobial resistance that has the potential to be so damaging to the world is exactly the sort of thing that the UK must be doing in the future, whatever the outcome of the Brexit negotiations. We have historically played our part in leading this debate and other debates, like with climate change, alongside partners around the world.
Climate change.
And we must continue to do that. Now, of course, the details of our relationship with our friends in Europe is an important part of that, but it is by no means the only part of it. And I think these issues where there is the need for global leadership are areas where the UK must step up and step forward, and that is even more important as we make our way in the world outside of the European Union, working with countries right across the globe. On the question of where the money is going to come from to pay for this plan, this is about turning the NHS buying power to incentivise new research into new drugs. So the NHS already spends £1 billion on antibiotics. Because we are one coordinated buyer for a population of 50 million, A
population of 50 million? Are you sure about that? Are we sure there's actually 50 million people in this country? Because, well, it's been known for a few years, it's more like around 65 million. Although these numbers seem to be, I don't know, a bit spurious, to say the least.
That gives the NHS the buying power to be able to structure that procurement right to incentivise research. So it's about using the existing buying power better rather than paying per click and paying per pill, It's about having a more dynamic procurement relationship with the pharmaceutical companies in this area.
Thank you, Minister. And Ed, maybe on your climate change question, Professor Jeremy Farrar from the Wellcome Trust yesterday here in a press conference mentioned that we're now, since 2011, consistently almost 200 epidemic events around the world. Almost 200 epidemic events around the world. Almost 200 epidemic events around the world.
Number of countries around the globe, that ends up being about 2 per country.
Which does bring this on par with climate change as a business risk, for sure. So I think that's a very important point as well. I think we have a question from Devex there, please.
Thank you. Hi, yeah, Sophie Edwards from Devex. We write about the developing world. You talked about this as a global issue, and things like AMR and TB is obviously devastating, but not really in the UK. How are you going to make it global? How will the impacts be felt? And are you working with DFID, maybe using any aid funding to help this effort?
Yes, of course. The DFID aid budget supports research into vaccines and a whole host of support for improving health around the world. In fact, I've just come from a meeting with Bill Gates vaccines. On exactly this subject.
Billy Boy's boy.
it's incredibly important to us that we use the aid budget, as effectively as possible, and to get ahead of the need to improve health outcomes in the developing world. And antimicrobial resistance at its worst will be most devastating for the poorest countries. And it is undoubtedly a global problem, and it's one that will use our strong aid budget to support. This is a whole government effort from the UK government, as it is from many of our partners who are also leading in this area.
We're not investing it in health education, we're not investing it into how to grow crops, how to better manage things, how to better operate things. We're not going to give you any aid in that whatsoever. What we're going to do is take the aid money we're going to give you and invest it into a company to make drugs to stick into your arm.
Thank you very much. I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions. Yes, the lady in the front row, please.
Thank you, Julie from iPhone.com. A proposal to high tax on the rich people with 70% tax is from America. So how do you look at that proposal? Will you scare of this, or will UK adopt that kind of proposal in the future?
That's not our proposal. We've successfully been able to increase the budget in the UK spent on health, which is a big demand of the population in the UK,
Numbers of sufferers.
Without having to put up taxes, because our economy is strong.
We got rid of waiting lists. We reduced the number of beds in hospitals. Even the point of, well, where did all the Nightingale beds go? So they've actually saved a hell of a lot of money with COVID. And all the people who, to a certain degree, will have died because they wouldn't have received the treatment, or they wouldn't have received a diagnosis early enough because they cut the waiting lists. They've saved themselves a fortune, which means they can actually invest that money that they would have been shelling out.
And that's where the funding for this initiative in the UK will come from. But of course, the solutions to health challenges that spread around the world, like AMR, can't be done by one country alone. The solutions are from individuals to make sure that we only use antibiotics when we need to, at a country level, but also at a global level.
Thank you very much. Mindful of the time and the packed schedule of the Minister, I'd like to close the press conference here. Thank you very much for being here.
But it doesn't just end here. Oh no, there's more.